That is the biggest, in my view, biggest challenge in the industry in Kenya. Post isn't given much attention. But in saying that, the reason I am here at DocuBox is because it's changing. I know I was there before DocuBox was. I know how much they've done. And to grow together into the industry, we have to all start collaborating like this. My name is Franki. My name is Franki Ashiruka. Editor, CEO, founder, post-production house, Africa Post Office. Yeah, that's it. The film bag. Hey. Film started for me after I was in college, after like 2 years into the 3-year college at Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. That's when it hit me, oh, I'm here doing. Because before that, you know, after high school, you're hanging around not knowing what to do with your life. And then you look at the newspaper and they're calling for entrants. We are looking for these people to come to Kenya Institute of Mass Communication for these courses. And there was all of them, all the departments that we know of. And I chose editing. And then they called us for an interview. And there were 6,000 entries for just editing. That was 1991. Out of the 6,000 entries for editing, they were looking for 7 for Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. And then halfway into it is when I discovered this is cool. This is really nice. So I could say 2 years into the editing college, editing training, the diploma course, is when I discovered this is for me. Growth. I'm lucky. No, I'm not lucky. How I got to where I am is because of extremely hard work. Every chance I got, like we all do, I didn't waste it. So I'm finished college, and legally, before you graduate, we were supposed to have an attachment period and then go back graduate. So that period, I got into KTN and edited this show, which nobody wanted to do, a talk show. It was really boring now that I look back. Boring show. We just talk, cut, end, finish, submit. But UN loved it because it was about kids. Because they loved it, they gave it an award for best, whatever it was, for the subject matter. Not for the editing, obviously, because it was just cut. But then my name came up to Chris Fraser at Media Network. Chris was a film director who was the first guy who had a digital editing machine. You know, now they're everywhere, but his was the first one, and it wasn't even Avid, which is weird. So the Cube, I think it was called, from Israel. So I went there and he said, I need you to learn this because my job is to go out and film. Right now, I'm doing all of this. So this is you. And he left me in the deep end. And because I take things seriously, of course I did. It nearly killed me because now how do you edit with a computer? Previously, I was tape to tape and then film editing. But I learned, and Chris was very happy. And then he showed me, do this. When you cut like this, cut like that, you know. I did have the background. I had 3 years of edit. So before I got employed by them, I went to college, graduated, came back to Media Network, and started to edit. As I'm editing at Media Network, some other Muzungu guy, sorry, is looking for an editor. Richard Vaughan from Inca was the bomb at the time. In the late 90s, he was the documentary king in Nairobi. This is how I met Judy, actually, Judy Kibinge, on a Richard Vaughan's project. And he said, I'd like you to come and edit for me this thing. By then, Chris has already been telling people there is this girl. She can edit. Try her. So Richard gave Media Network a documentary project, and they gave it to me to do. Richard could not look away from that. So he said, you're coming with me. I will take you to UK so we can finish this thing. So my first trip, 1998, to Somerset to finish a project. And then I came back, and another Peter Fairhurst was bringing in Avid into Kenya. Avid Edit Software, first one. And he was a sales company that brought it in. Peter Fairhurst was looking for an editor he can train so we can sell Avid to Kenya. You could say I brought Avid to Kenya, but was talking. And then he taught me, and then I learned it, and that was it. I didn't live there. They started a post house called Ramjamas there at Film Studios, and I stayed there with Avid. And in that, Richard Vaughan came. Chris was still coming. Everybody was coming to bring their work there. So after that, skip forward, I get married to an Australian who's here, was living here in advertising, and he says, let's go to New Zealand. And I'm like, okay. So we go to New Zealand. My challenge, the biggest one, was I am African, I'm a lady, I'm in this country that I'm going to live in, culture shock to begin with. And then to now find the landscape, the film landscape of this country was impossible as me. I don't know anyone. So, in 2014, as I'm editing this Fearless Chef documentary for National Geographic, which, I mean, let's be honest, that's a good thing. I was happy. I was like, what do you mean National Geographic? It went. And Andrew White, now, he was leaving Scanad, had left Scanad Advertising, and an advertising guy had retired, and he was building this place called the Village Creative. And in the Village Creative, his intention was to have everyone that makes up everyone that fits the film industry. So, like, have a post house in there, have a sound studio, have a production house, have a modeling agency, have anything that builds up to make was there, his idea. And he said, and I think you should come and run the post house as yours. I said, what? Because all this time I've been freelancing. Since the late 90s to now, 2014, I've never had to sit with someone as an employee. I was a freelancer. I'd go from place to place. And I said, let me think about it. The challenge is, because it's now I need my clients to come to me, the charge is now on them. So now I have to bill them to be in my space because I'm paying for my space. I become a lot more expensive than I should be to sustain Africa Post Office. So obviously most people would go, hey, we only have this much in the budget, this much in the budget. But any clever person would know cheap is expensive. And because, again, my record has never been tarnished. If I take on a job, I will do it. I take things seriously, everything in life. So because of that reputation, money became less of an issue for my clients. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll come. How much? Yeah, okay. So for that reason, I now have to train people. So Africa Post Office is not just Franki, because everybody comes to Africa Post Office for Franki. Now my most favored clients, I have to now say, you'll edit with Kevin, you'll edit with Winnie, which they're like, no, but we came for you. So how to convince them? But the answer to that is to clone, for lack of a better word, Kevin and Winnie, so that they do as I do. The dream of being everywhere and extending what I know and teaching and growing with all of us. That dream, I cannot do it alone, as we all know. I can't do it alone. I need entities that are already established or are in the process or need my services to help me progress to more post-producing people. So this is where entities like DocuBox come in. They will have workshops, post-production workshops, or anything to do with my world. They will call me, they will bring people, and I will help teach. I know I was there before DocuBox was. I know how much they've done. You will not go anywhere in Kenya, East Africa, and not hear someone was a DocuBox child. This is also what I want. I want to go everywhere and go, do you know Franki? Yeah, Franki. She's Africa Post Office. That's why I'm here. This is DocuBox for me. And to grow together into the industry, we have to all start collaborating like this. Yeah, our film industry, the Kenyan film industry. Yeah, there's not much attention paid to, and I don't know if it's intentional or not intentional, there isn't much attention paid to post-production in general. The processes will pay so much attention to writing, for example, to camera work, for example, and then they'll go and film and they'll even workshop the filming processes, and then it will come back to the edit desk and everyone will walk away and leave it to the editor or the director who has not much experience into post. How we can grow faster is if we focus on the whole process, beginning to end, start of concept, marketing, it's gone, everything. That way some of us can have an easy time trying to, grow more people. That is the biggest, in my view, biggest challenge in the industry in Kenya. Post isn't given much attention. But in saying that, the reason I am here at DocuBox is because it's changing. So there is hope. We are seeing more and more. The reason Africa Post Office is known is because people are starting to recognize and respect what editors, graphic designers, everybody in post does. Where do I see myself in the next 10 years? Where do I see us in the next 10 years? I see post is still a very young industry in Kenya, let alone East Africa, let alone Africa. It's a young industry. For it to grow, some of us have to offload what we know. In the next 10 years, there will be an Africa Post Office, God willing, in Addis, in Kigali, in Namibia, in Africa Post Office, with children that I have put there, extending what they know to everybody. That is me. Let's grow post-production.